Okay, so looking at our science, we've been talking about plant life cycles, which is what we're going to continue to do. But last week when we were talking about plants, we had discussed plants that started as a seed or as, what else? Was there something else?
As a seed or a...
My memory has left me.
berry?
Oh, how some don't have like flowers, like pine cones, like to pine trees. That's what it was. All right, well, what we're going to talk about today, have you ever seen on the backside of some leaves? A lot of times you'll see it like on a fern plant. They have those brown dots on them, and you can feel them. They kind of stick up off of there. Have you ever seen those before or no?
Yeah.
Those are called spores. What are they called?
Spores.
Spores. So plants with flowers make seeds. We know that. And then those seeds either are planted or they fall back into the ground and they start to grow if they have the right things, like enough water, enough sunlight, the right temperature. Okay, so it says plants with cones make seeds, but do all plants make seeds? We're going to find out more what these spore things are. So active reading. As you read this page, draw a circle, a what?
Circle.
Around a clue word that signals a comparison. So a comparison means when we're looking at two things that are similar, the same, alike. Okay? Draw a box. What are we drawing?
A box.
Around a clue word that signals a contrast. So if comparison means that we're finding things that are kind of the same or similar, what is contrast? It means to find things that are different, the opposite. So we're circling things that are being compared, and we're putting a box around things that are being contrasted. Are we ready? Okay. Some plants do not make flowers, cones, or seeds. Instead, they reproduce only with...
Spores.
Thank you for knowing where we're at, Haley. Like seeds, spores are reproductive structures that can grow into new plants. Okay, they're having us do something that we've never done before. Comparing and contrasting, finding those clue words. In that paragraph, there were two words. One word showed contrasting, and one word was comparing. Any ideas what those might be, though? Natalia? Like. Says, like seeds, spores are reproductive structures that can grow into new plants. Is that comparing, how they're kind of similar? Or is that contrasting, how they're completely different? Similar. So we're going to circle, what word did Natalia say? Like. Can you figure out the word that they used for contrasting? Talking about how things are different. What are you thinking?
Instead.
You are correct. Instead. All right, let's look at the second paragraph.
It's more kind of like a rectangle around instead.
It's just supposed to be a box. So a box could be a square or a rectangle. All right, ferns are one type of plant that reproduces using only spores. Ferns have leaves called, look at that word, it's in italicized print. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Those of you that are following along know exactly where we're at, right? Those of you that haven't been following along have no idea where we are. We are right here at this word, fronds. What's that word?
Fronds.
Fronds. Each frond has smaller leaves that branch off from the stem. I bet if we look closer at this picture, we'll have a better idea of what fronds are. So it said ferns have leaves called fronds. Look at this fern plant leaf right here. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm going to draw on mine. You don't have to draw on yours. So right here, this whole thing is part of the fern plant. What are, excuse me, my mask is driving me bonkers. This here, okay, ferns have leaves called what?
Fronds.
Fronds. Those are the fronds. Each frond has leaves that branch off from the stem. Okay? So if we look even more zoomed in this picture here, do you see the caption
Yeah.
in the black down there?
Mm-hmm.
Says, spores form in small group on the underside of the fern fronds. Each group contains hundreds of spores. So, do ferns grow from seeds?
No.
No. What do ferns grow from?
Spores.
Spores. And where do those spores grow on the fern?
On the back side of the leaves.
But what are those leaves called on the fern?
Fronds.
Fronds. Okay. So these right here, all of these little leaf-looking things on the underneath side of them, what starts growing?
Spores.
The spores start growing. Okay, looking over here on page 97, it says moss. Do you guys know what moss is?
Yes.
Have you ever seen moss growing like on a tree or on a rock or sometimes in water?
Or horse things.
Yes. Okay, so moss is another type of plant that reproduces using only
Spores.
mosses are small, soft plants. Sometimes they're slimy plants too.
Yeah.
Groups of moss often grow together in damp places. What does damp mean?
Kind of wet. Moist.
A little bit wet.
Like
Is it like completely saturated with water though?
No.
No. Okay, so damp places without much light. They kind of like, they don't like it completely dark, but they don't like to be out in the bright sunlight. Mosses don't. Sometimes moss looks like a green blanket covering rocks and trees. This blanket is actually made up of many tiny moss plants. So looking at this picture of this tree, do you see all the places moss is growing?
Yeah.
Is there moss growing on the tree?
Yes.
All over the tree?
Yeah.
No.
Kind of working its way up the tree?
Mhm.
What about over here? Is there moss growing on that?
Yeah.
What about down in here?
Yeah.
And even like back behind this true false box? Do you think that's all full of moss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Have you ever felt a moss plant?
Yeah.
No.
They're really soft.
Mhm.
They kind of feel like a soft, almost like furry in a way. They're so soft like that. All right, let's look at this picture with the caption. Is this zoomed in on moss?
Yes.
Yes, it is. It says mosses make spores in little capsules. Do you see these up here?
Yeah.
Those are the capsules, okay? And that's where the spores are being made. At the end of stalks, the capsules keep the spores dry while the moss remains damp. Lucas, are you with us? Okay, I've already said that we were just now reading page 97. All right? When the capsules dry out, because what's inside that capsule again?
The
spores.
The spores. So when the capsules dry out, what do you think they do? It says they release. So what does that mean they do?
They probably
They
open.
probably-
Yeah, they open up. So they release the spores into the air. These tiny spores float away and make new plants where they bud. Can that happen with seeds too?
Yeah.
Can seeds float away?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think some animals knock those open too?
Yeah.
The capsules that have the spores in them?
Yeah, probably.
Probably so. Okay, let's take a look at the true false questions. There's 5 of them. We're just going to circle the T if it's true or the F if it's false. Spores are seeds. Are they?
Kind of, but not really.
Are they? Is a seed another name for a spore?
No.
Or are they different?
They're kind of different.
So how do we need to answer that one?
With a
False.
false.
Spores are seeds. True or false?
False.
I would agree. I think that's false. Turn back a page because this next one says cones release spores.
It's
So-
2 pages.
Is it 2 pages?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do cones release spores?
No.
Look at this down here. It says cones are part of some seed plants where reproduction occurs. Up here it says some plants make seeds without flowers. Their seeds form in cones. So if we go back to that, cones release spores.
No.
True or false?
False.
False.
I would agree. Oh, I don't know why I turned the page. I'm looking at the next number, not turning the page. 3. Mosses make spores.
Yeah.
Now remember, all of this was moss. And what did it say about those capsules?
They open
What's
like
inside there?
spores.
Oh, so do mosses make spores?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do we need to circle?
T.
That is true.
T for true or true.
4. Ferns do not make flowers. Let's come back over here. Let's read this first. paragraph. Some plants do not make flowers, cones, or seeds. Instead, they reproduce only with spores. Like seeds, spores are reproductive structures that can grow into new plants. Ferns are one type of plant that reproduces using only spores.
So that's something else.
Ferns have leaves called fronds. Each frond has smaller leaves that branch off from the stem. Did it say anything here, to make you think ferns do not make flowers? Did it say anything about flowers in there?
No.
No.
So what would we need to mark here? Ferns do not make flowers. Is that true
Yes.
or is that false?
True.
It is true. They do not make flowers.
Plus, the fern is pretty much a leaf.
Let's look at 5. One more to go here. Mosses do not make seeds.
True.
Because what do they make?
Spores.
So mosses do not make seeds is
True.
okay. All right, now we are to the review of that short lesson. The sum it up says when you're done, use the answer key to check and revise your work. So it says write the vocabulary term that matches each photo and caption. This is what it's called when a seed starts to grow. Do you remember?
Mhm.
What is that word when a seed starts to grow? Amy,
Seedling.
you are correct. So we're going to write, can you guys see that okay? Or is the blue hard to see?
It's okay.
It's okay.
What about back there?
It's kind of.
Is it hard to see on the video?
Yeah, and the board's kind of small.
Is it?
Mhm. Like how small? Like too small?
What do you?
Like a little
Okay,
bit.
so that is a seedling. Look at the second one. So we're moving over to the right. Some plants do not have flowers to help them reproduce. Instead, they have this plant part. What do you think? What is this?
Come.
Cone. Now, what was that word that it said what plants do to make more plants? Do you remember? You can always look back if you're not sure what plants do to make more plants. It is on page 92. It's one of the highlighted words. Oh, actually, they wanted one of those. Hold on. When the plant starts to grow, it starts to germinate. I think that's what they want there.
Oh.
I think they want us to use those highlighted vocabulary words from page 92. Sorry about that.
But
Would be kind of helpful if they use vocabulary words.
Well, it does say write the vocabulary term. Okay, so what is that called when what plants do to make more plants?
Reproduce.
Reproduce. So Produce. And then this fourth one. This is what helps flowering plants produce seeds. Remember, your hand isn't, there we go. Remember when the bees are looking for the nectar
Yeah.
and they get that stuff on them? What's that stuff they get on them, everybody?
Pollen.
Pollen. That's part of the word. This is what helps flowering plants produce seeds. So it's pollination.
It's one word.
Yes, one word.
Do we just cross out spring or erase it?
You can just cross it out. If you want to erase it, that's fine too. Totally up to you. All right, now we have to fill in the blanks with the correct word that tells about the life cycle of plants. So the different stages that a plant goes through in its life make up its, what's that thing called when it keeps repeating, keeps going over and over and over again. Lucas?
Life cycle.
Yes, life cycle. It's hard for me to write small.
5.
Life cycle. The next step, do you remember? After a seed germinates, it becomes a what? Raylan?
An adult?
No. Before it's an adult, what is it? Seedling. Okay, the next one. 7. Insects are one way that moves from a male plant part to a female plant part. Remember, that's the stuff that can get on the bottom of like a hummingbird or the bottom of a bee or another type of insect. What is that? What's that stuff called, everybody?
Pollen.
Pollen. So it's one way that pollen moves from a plant, a male plant part to a female plant part. In a flowering plant, the what contains the seeds that will grow into a new plant? If you're not sure, you can look back. What part contains the seeds that will grow into a new plant?
Oh.
Connor?
Fruit.
Yes. All right, then water, wind, and what carry seeds to new ground? What did it say in the earlier part of the lesson? Water, wind, and Natalia? What? Animals. And then this is from what we talked about today. Plants like mosses make what? But do not make seeds when they reproduce. They don't make seeds. What do they make, everybody? Spores. Oops. That's supposed to be an SP. I'll start over. Spores. ORES.
Oh, I just put an S.
What would that say if it fit you in this?
Spose.
Suppose.
Suppose you would do that.
I suppose.
Okay. Do you see these words down here?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to use those words. We don't have to write them in the blank. We're going to fill them in our crossword puzzle.
Yay.
Okay? So, these are all words that are across. So, let's look at the clue for 3 across. The stages that a plant goes through in its life are called its, what is that?
Life cycle.
So let's see if life cycle fits in here. 1 letter in each box, right?
Oh.
It has to be 3 across because that's the number underneath the across part. So did life cycle fit in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is our next number?
5.
5, and it's still underneath across. Find 5 across in the crossword puzzle. Do you see where those boxes are for 5 across? Am I in the right spot?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the colorful part of a plant that helps it reproduce is called a what? Can you look back?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But friends, what's usually colorful on a plant? Is it the flower that reproduces, that germinates, the pollination, the pollen, the cone, or the spore? Which part is colorful on a plant? The stem? No. What is it, everybody?
Flower.
Okay, so we're going to spell out flower. Is it important to spell words correctly in a crossword puzzle?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
What's the
Or
way?
else it won't make sense.
Exactly. So now I've completed 3 across and 5 across. That only leaves me with 1 more across, doesn't it?
7.
Let's see if we can figure out 7. When a seed, it breaks open and a small plant grows out of it. When a seed, what? Which one of these is it? What do you think, Connor?
Germany?
What were you thinking?
Germinate.
What were you thinking? Look to see. REPRODUCES. GERMINATES. Now they both fit, don't they?
Yeah.
So if you're not sure, what should you do?
Look back.
Look back to see what it says about reproduces and what it says about germinates. When a seed, it breaks open and a small plant grows out of it.
Yep.
What do you think, Connor?
Germany.
Amy, what are you thinking? You changed your mind?
Germinate.
Natalia?
Germinate. Germinate.
Okay, so let's write that in there. Are we finished with all of our across words?
Yes.
So now we need to go to our down words, don't we? One down. Find one down in the crossword itself. Pretty long, isn't it? What happens when pollen moves from the male part of the plant to a female part of the plant? Everybody.
Pollinate.
Pollination. Okay, let's fill that in. All right, find two down. And the clue for that is the powder-like material that helps plants reproduce is called,
Pollen.
what is it, everyone?
Pollen.
Pollen. Think you can finish the rest of those?
Yeah.
So 4 down, plants that make seeds but do not produce a fruit, produce a,
Spore.
no.
Cone.
4 down is, and they give you a clue on that one because it starts with what letter? A C. So what is that?
Cone.
Okay, 6 down. When a seed plant, what's going to go there?
Reproducing.
When a seed plant reproduces, it makes seeds that will grow into new plants. And then that means our last one is what word?
Spore.
Correct. A spore is the only structure that ferns use when they reproduce. Okay, we will, actually, no, we'll go ahead and finish this page, okay? So, looking at just page 100. I know that you see 101 on yours, but I switched mine so it only shows 100, okay? So now, we've talked about the life cycle of a plant. Starts out as a seed, then it turns into a seedling, and from a seedling it goes to
Adult plant.
an adult plant, and then what?
A fruit.
Okay. Now look what they did here. They've only given us 3 steps here, right? That we have to fill in. What is this right here?
Fruit.
That's the fruit. So from the fruit, what would happen? What do you notice about the fruit though?
Has the seed.
Oh, the fruit also has the seed in it. So what's going to happen next in this life cycle? of this peach. It's a peach tree because peaches grow on trees. Okay? So what's going to happen next? We already have the seed. They put the seed and the fruit all in the same spot. What would we draw here? Can you picture it in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
From the seed, do you remember what we said it becomes?
Mm-hmm.
A great big giant tree.
No.
It becomes that right away?
No.
No, what does it become, everybody?
A seedling.
So draw a seedling peach tree. What would it look like? Is it going to be a nice big old tree yet? No, it's like a baby tree, isn't it? After you draw your seedling, what's in this next step of this peach tree life cycle? Lucas? The actual tree, the adult tree, right?
Adult.
Right, go ahead and finish those two sketches. They don't have to be super detailed.
Mine just looks like a regular tree.
Perfect.
Mine just looks like a big hole.
As long as it doesn't look like a fern
Like a tower.
or moss.
Mine looks like a tree that's
Mine actually looks like an apple tree.
Mine looks like a tower with bushes on top of it.
Mine looks
Okay,
like a person.
do you have those two stages
Yep.
completed?
Mm.
Okay, look down at part 3 here. Says, in each picture, tell whether seeds or pollen are being moved. What about this dandelion? Are seeds being moved or is pollen being moved?
Seeds.
Let's write that down.
Did I write down just seeds?
Just seeds. How about the bird here?
Seeds.
Seeds or pollen?
Seeds.
Because what's inside that fruit?
Seeds.
Mm.
Damn.
How about the insect in the flower? Seeds or pollen?
Pollen.
Pollen. Okay, close your notebook, or your workbook, excuse me, and put it back in your crate.